These have been a couple of the most interesting mics in the last couple years. They're both affordable. They're basically the same microphone. They sound fantastic, and they're both USB and XLR. The SM7B has been one of the best microphones for the last few decades. It's built like a tank. You can shape the frequency here on the back. It sounds amazing, as proven by the fact that so many people over the decades have used this, from being a main microphone on the radio to being in the music studio, and now pretty much the #1 microphone in podcasting. So Shure certainly makes some of the best microphones in the business. What happens when you take these microphones, which are a little more adapted for the internet age or the hobbyists, which we are seeing because of the internet? You can go straight in via USB. If you go into a mixer, you have XLR. What happens when we take these microphones, or when Shure takes these microphones, takes the SM7B and smashes them together? You get the Shure MV7. Looks a lot like the SM7B, except one big feature, you saw it coming, XLR and USB. We're going to take a look at this microphone. Mostly I want you to be able to hear how it sounds. Then I'll give you the features of it and some impressions along the way. Just looking at the body, something else that's very unique, it has a touchscreen. And then of course we have the classic SM7B body, except it is definitely smaller, it's shorter, it's about the same diameter, maybe even a little thicker, and it weighs a little less, although that was my first impression when I took this out of the box. I expected it not to feel like the SM7B. It does. It has a good weight to it. It's a metal shell or body, so you get that built like a tank SM7B feeling, which is great. And you have the classic SM7B yoke, so it's ready to go to attach to your mic stand. All right, let's see if this actually sounds like an SM7B. Is it even supposed to? Does it sound good? Is this something you would buy? Because it does sit right in the middle price-wise. So the SM7B is around $400 at the time of this video. The microphones I showed before, which all of this gear is linked in the description if you want to look into it more, those are around $100, but the MV7 sits right in between that at $250. Full disclosure, Shure sent this to me for review. If I didn't like it, they just wanted my feedback. I didn't have to make this video. Because you're seeing this video, I can tell you I do like it. So let's take a listen. All right, now you're hearing the MV7 plugged in via USB going into my DAW. I'm recording into the software, and then I sync that with the camera audio, which you're hearing right now. The camera's pretty far away. You can see the lights on here, which indicates that the microphone is connected via USB, and we have some options on the touch panel, which I will get to. But important to point out that I didn't talk about in the intro while you're listening to this microphone is that it is a USB microphone, yes, but it's a dynamic USB microphone. So just like the other two that I showed you in the intro, those are dynamics. Just like the SM7B, this is a dynamic microphone, so it gives us even better rejection. Most USB microphones are condenser microphones, and they're more sensitive to everything from plosives, where you have to be further off the microphone, and background noise, where this one is going to do a great job, just like the SM7B. So that is very cool here in 2020. We don't have a lot of options when it comes to dynamic USB microphones. The MV7 now gives us another one. Also, interestingly, on the box, it actually says MV7 podcast microphone. So this is branded as a podcast microphone, which I didn't actually notice when I first got it, and that fits with the price point where it sits lower than the SM7B, but also a little bit more than the other dynamic USB microphones, because in theory, we're taking a step up in quality here, and certainly it is a step up. All right, before I get to the options on the touch panel here, you get some desktop software, and it's called ShurePlus Motiv, and this is to control some of and more of the options that you are seeing here on the touch panel. The way that you are hearing this microphone right now is in a manual setup, and it's pretty much in its neutral position. So a few different options we have here. We can mute the mic
from the software. We can set the gain. We can also do both of those things on the touch panel. We can mess with the monitor mix, so the amount of the playback from the computer versus the amount of audio from your voice that you are monitoring. This is always important to me, to be able to mix between these two things. Again, something else you can also do on the mic, which I will show you. And then we have EQ options, and right now you're hearing it flat. So like on the back of the SM7B, where you can adjust the EQ for a low-end cut and a high-end boost, or you can make it flat, or you could do both of those things. The MV7 has all of those options. So again, inspired by the SM7B, it has these options as well. So you're currently hearing it as neutral, the way it sounds. Basically no EQ applied. Now there's also an auto level feature here in the MV7, and with that we can control if we are near or far to the microphone, meaning you select if you're near or far, and it's supposed to compensate for your proximity to the microphone and do an auto leveling. Now, it's not something I would have on, but if it's something that you think you need because you're back and forth between the microphone, it's not great mic technique, but there is an option here. Maybe you have a guest who's not used to being on microphone and don't know how to properly be on microphone. This might be an option for them. So those are the controls you get via the software, and then most of that is on the microphone as well. And it is a touch panel. So the green dots indicate that we are on gain, and I can just slide my finger across the touch panel and I am adjusting the gain, and it's also being adjusted in the software. Too low here, that's not loud enough to be recorded. So I'll bring this back up to where I was, which was at about 33. And it's not as responsive as your phone would be. Sometimes you have to sort of reset your finger and slide. Then you have sort of the microphone and headphone icon as a button here. If we select that, we go into orange, and those adjust the headphone volume. Now I don't have headphones in right now, but there is a headphone output in the bottom, and this is fantastic because this will allow you to get a direct monitor. You know, when you're using USB, you can get some latency, and you don't want to typically monitor via the software because your voice will be delayed and that won't sound good. And then if I hold this same button for 2 seconds, you'll see that we have half orange and half green, and that is the monitor mix. So I can adjust here, just like the software, I can adjust how much of my voice I'm hearing via the headphone output with how much of the computer. So if I'm doing an interview and I have someone coming in through the computer, that's where I would adjust that mix of how much I need to hear of the person versus myself. And then the microphone icon over here that is sort of crossed out, that's a mute button. So this might be the best feature to have on the microphone itself. I was muted, so you couldn't hear me. So mute button, being able to do that, which is great because in a lot of cases, you may not even have that option even on your own interface. So mute is pretty cool. And then if you hold down both of these buttons for 2 seconds, it'll lock the touch panel indicated by a little red dot there. That's also very helpful so that you don't change anything while you're recording. Maybe you go to move your microphone, then you can lock it. You don't have to worry about accidentally hitting a gain or mute setting. All right, let's run through a few of the customizable sound settings. So again, we're flat EQ. This is with the high pass enabled or low cut, but they're referring to it as a high pass. So we should drop some of that low end. Then we'll go over to a presence boost. So that higher end, that sparkle, that's what you're hearing here. This is a presence boost. And then we can enable both of those. We got a high pass and a presence boost. And this will make things a little brighter and probably less muddy. So I'll leave it on that for a minute, and I'll enable the limiter as I'm talking. So the limiter is on, now the limiter is off. I don't really hear that affecting the sound when I've been testing it out. So I will leave the limiter off. Here's the limiter back on again, and then the limiter off. And then we'll go into the compressor, which may raise the noise floor because sometimes a compressor does that to do some makeup gain for the compression. So you might hear some of that. It's currently off, but you'll also hear probably more, maybe my voice will have a little bit more of that radio type sound. So it's off. Let's go to light. That is a light compressor. And then we'll transition here into a medium compression. This is medium, and then we'll transition over here. And now we are heavy compression. And if I'm quiet for a second, let's see if that raises the noise floor at all. So heavy again, here is medium compression, here is light, and then we go back to off. So this is off. This is where I'm going to leave it. These are all effects that I'm going to do in post-processing, so I don't need to bake it into this file. However, if you were streaming live, this could be handy to have things like a limiter and some compression and shaping your EQ, which I'm going to go back to the flat setting. If I go to the auto level, which is what I'll do now, and I am now on auto level, and so now that we're in auto, I can set this to far. Now I'm far, so it's going to raise, and I'm going to back off the microphone here a little bit because I am telling it that I am far. But then I'll come back and I'll reset that to near, whereas that's where I'm going to be when I'm on microphone. We're on the natural tone. We're on the dark tone, so this is dark. It should be a little darker. More of that low-end boost. And then bright, which will be the high-end boost. So this is bright. And again, this is something I would leave on natural. So speaking of the sound signature, let's put this up against my SM7B. So the SM7B that I use every day for all the work that I do in podcasting and live streaming, that is the mic I use every day. All right, so let me pull in the SM7B here. All right, now we have the SM7B with the MV7 literally side by side, and I'll switch back and forth between both of these microphones. And again, the MV7 is set to its neutral position, and so is the SM7B. So pretty much out of the box, both of these mics compared to each other. So for me, the MV7 does have an SM7B sound, which is pretty cool because now I can get an SM7B sound into a USB microphone and or get it at a more affordable price. So you can judge for yourself if it sounds like an SM7B, but I think it's close. And if you're looking for that SM7B sound, but you don't want to pay the price of an SM7B and or you don't need to get all the gear that goes with an SM7B, because when you buy this microphone, you still need an interface. You may need something like a cloud lifter or a FET head to boost because it is not a sensitive microphone. So you have this going into the Rodecaster Pro, and some of what you're hearing, so if I'm completely quiet, some of what you're hearing is affected by the Rodecaster and its own preamps, but I have all of the effects off. So you are hearing just the SM7B direct to the Rodecaster Pro. No effects, no processing, but you do have to crank the gain up pretty high. So you might be getting a little bit of a noise floor from that. And an important difference between what you're hearing is that the USB MV7 is cleaner because it's also more sensitive. So I don't think it needs as much gain. I'm using 33 dB of gain right now per the setting in the software. And on this, I have the Rodecaster all the way up to 40 dB of gain. So quite a big difference. This is probably around 5 to 7 dB more sensitive. So another advantage over the SM7B. And of course, again, you're not buying extra gear with the MV7. You just go right in via USB. However, if you want to expand its capabilities or you want to grow into a mixer because you're going to have more people or you just have other things you need to do, that's when the XLR comes in. Let's put in the XLR and listen to that. Okay, now you're hearing the MV7 via XLR, again alongside the SM7B, which is obviously XLR. It's the only option, but we've taken the USB out. You can see the touch panel is no longer active because it's not connected to USB, and you are hearing this at 37 dB into the Rodecaster Pro, again with no effects. So the MV7 versus this SM7B, and let's be quiet. All right, that's the Shure MV7. It's a pretty cool microphone. You can get that SM7B sound at a more affordable price. and it is easier to work with because it's USB. So if you just need one microphone for your podcast or live stream, you can get into the MV7. And just like the SM7B, it looks good on camera. So it's not only a great sounding microphone with a lot of options, it looks good. And I like that, especially in these days when we're doing more things online where the microphone, because it is dynamic, it's going to need to be close to you, is going to be in the shot. So, hey, make an investment in your gear and yourself. Look great, sound great. If you have any questions about the MV7, ask them in the comments, and I'll see you next time.